Good morning. This is Tim Carter, Superintendent at Wilson Central School District with the high school town hall meeting. Right now it is 2 minutes to 11. We'll get started at 2 minutes after 11. We have 3 people logged on. So we have about 4 minutes and we'll get started. Again, this is Tim Carter, Superintendent of Wilson Central School District. This is the high school town hall meeting. It's about 1 minute to 11. We'll wait till 2 minutes after 11 and I'll get started with the real conversation. It is 11 o'clock right now. We're going to start in 2 minutes with the Wilson High School reopening conversation, town hall meeting. I'm going to give it to about 2 minutes after and then get started. So while we're waiting for 2 minutes after, if you take a look at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see the word "Say Something." That's where you can interact with Mr. Gelgovich and myself, who are in my office live giving this presentation. To help us with setting the stage of where we should start and what we should do, it'd be important for us to know if you have viewed any one of the other reopening, meaning the high school reopenings, because if that's the case, we won't start at the beginning. If everybody who's on here, and we're up to 8, 3 people I know, so there's 5 others. If anyone on here, you could indicate in your little chat box whether or not you've viewed this presentation before, because then we can just start with questions and not have to review the whole plan from the beginning. If I don't get any indication of where we're at, I'll just start from the beginning and go from there. Thank you, Judy. Appreciate it. I am going to send out a phone call message. That number 751-9399 is the district number that we've been using throughout this coronavirus time, starting in March. If you have any specific questions about the high school reopening or any individual questions that we don't answer today, please reach out to that number. So welcome. It is 3 minutes after 11, so I'm going to get started with rules of engagement. This is fairly interactive, meaning it's as interactive as you want it to be. So if you ask the questions, we'll answer it. I have with me Mr. Gelgovich in the office, along with Jennifer Pavon, the district clerk, who number actually is that 751-9399. She sat through a number of these reopening conversations. So if she can't give the answer, she'll make sure she gets it to somebody who can. I've had one person of the 9 that are online indicate that they've listened to things before. So that being the case, that means the rest of you are first-time viewers. So we're going to kind of go through the whole plan as best as we can. At any time you have questions, please stop and ask them, and we will do our best. If I don't have the answer, Mr. Galgovich will. So that's the rules of engagement. Cleaning and sanitizing. We have a plan in place. Right now, the high school, middle school will open up into a hybrid type of setting, which means depending on the letter of your alphabet and where you're in the system, you have 2 models you can choose. You could either choose full remote or distance learning model, or you could choose a hybrid model in which your child would be in school 2 days a week and then virtually or remoting in the other 3 days. Depending on the cohort they're in, that would determine their what days they're in school. Basically, cohort A is letters A through L, and then M through Z are cohort B. We do have cohort C kids. Those are our 12-on-1 students, our life skills students, and they will be here every single day. And then we have cohort B, which is our distance learning. So those Google Forms have been signed out. We've kept track of who wants distance learning, who's able to transport, and the more people they're able to transport, the better it's going to be for at least the district when it comes to getting kids here as best as possible. This week, we are working with the transportation list to make phone calls to find out. There was a number of people, almost 400 people indicated that they would transport their kids, but then when it came to committing to it, there was significantly a lot less. So we're going to call all the people who indicated first that they would transport their child and see if we can, add to that list, because the fewer kids that are on the bus, the more social distance we can be. Okay, so cleaning and sanitizing. We have a plan in place based on this model to be able to clean the high school, middle school campus every single night with a deep cleaning process on Wednesday, which will be all hands on deck, assisting with all surfaces. Throughout the day, while the students are in school, we have custodian and cleaning staff that will be here to help with the highly frequently touched areas, cafeteria tables, door handles, handrails, bathrooms, things like that, so they can be on a schedule to be sanitized more frequently. And then each evening, as soon as school is out, the cleaning crew will begin the process of making sure that they're ready for that the building has been cleaned and sanitized for the next day. Mr. Harmon, our Director of Facilities, has worked with his cleaning staff and has trained them on the CDC guidelines for cleaning and sanitizing. And then each cleaner has a separate section that they'll be in charge of and making sure, held accountable for, that it was cleaned and sanitized for that night. And that accountability system is a sign off that the person will be able to sign off, and we'll know, and we'll be able to tell the health department what direction, where we are in the cleaning process. And I saw a question pop up, so yeah. I will take it.
So we can choose between a hybrid plan or all 5 days home plan.
That is correct, Matthew. You can choose a distance learning plan, which is all 5 days home, and then or you can choose to be in the hybrid model, which means 2 days a week you're in school, 3 days you're out of school. Either way, you'll need a district computer. No matter what model you choose, you need to have a district computer. And if you have not made contact, if you haven't had a phone call yet, you need to make contact with our tech department. You can call that 751-9399 number, and we'll make sure we get you signed out a home book. And if you need district technology for internet, we'll work on that too with you. So all students have to use their district provided technology. If they have their own, that's great, but I'm responsible to make sure that every piece of material that they have is appropriate for school. So therefore, their individual piece of technology must go through our filter. So our district filter is on those Chromebooks and will stop students from getting to certain sites that they're not allowed to get to in school. Okay, so that's the cleaning and sanitizing, and pretty much that's how it works, just like Matthew's question. When you ask a question, I'll stop and I'll answer it the best I can, and then I'll get back to my list that I'm going down and making sure that I cover all the areas. So cleaning and sanitizing, we talked about that. Each cleaner's going to have an area. They'll sign off that they completed cleaning and sanitizing that area based upon the CDC guidelines. Wednesday is a total remote day because we're switching from cohort A kids to cohort B kids, and the C students will be here also that day, but we're switching, so there'll be a lot less kids in the building, and we'll be going through classrooms and doing deep cleaning in classrooms and things like that. Okay, getting into the health and safety items. The first health and safety item is the health screen. Every student that comes to school, so this is only the students that are coming to school. So cohort A only needs to do a health screen on the 2 A days, Monday and Tuesday. Cohort B only needs to do their screen on Thursday and Friday. Nobody needs to do a screen on Wednesday except for cohort C, which is our 12 and 1 students. They'll need to do it 5 days a week. So the health screen will be on a district website. You can download the app to your phone, because I have the Wilson website as an app on my phone. Every morning, every one of my administrators and teachers that are coming into the building, prior to coming into the building, they have to take the COVID screen, which asks them a number of symptomatic questions. Do you have a fever higher than 100.0? Have you felt feverish? There's just a number of symptoms that are associated. Do you have shortness of breath, cough? Do you feel fatigue? Do you have muscle aches, body aches, a headache? A loss of taste or smell, sore throat, congestion, runny nose, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. All of those things are associated with COVID. And also, I know they're associated with all sorts of other, which is going to make this interesting as school year starts to open up. And we're going to go into the health screen in specifics that you are going to need to take that health screen any day, every single day. And if you answer yes to any of those symptoms, and it's a day you're supposed to come in, you need to stay home, contact the nurse. They'll give you information on what you need to do in order to return, which is you need to go to your doctor, and you need to get a note saying that you're able to return from school. Now, these are not guidance that Mr. Carter came up with, Mr. Galgovich, or even Wilson Central School District. This is coming right from the state health department. As of right now, on August 24th at 11:11 a.m., if you exhibit any of these signs of COVID, and I know there's a lot of crossover signs. I have a ton of parents call me and say, my child suffers migraines. My child has days where they don't feel so well. You have to use your best judgment. If you answer yes to any of those symptoms, and you know your child is sick, you need to take your child to the doctors, and you need to get a note that when that child can return and they're symptom free. And as of right now, at 11:12 on August 24th, you not only need a note, you also need a negative COVID test to return to school if sick. Now, that is guidance from the Department of Health, who receives their guidance from the governor. Now, we've heard word that the governor may loosen that up a little bit and say doctors know or a negative COVID test. But as of right now, this is what the Niagara County Department of Health is telling us that we need to have in order to have a child return from school. Also, if at any time you're in school and you exhibit one of these signs and you go down to the nurse and say, I feel like I have a fever, my stomach is upset, any of those things happen, you're going to be isolated. The student will be isolated in the building, and then a phone call will go home to have that child sent home. When the child's sent home, they'll receive the same guidelines. Here's what you need to do. This is right from the Department of Health. Here's what you need to do in order to return to school. So I'm reading this right off the Department of Health chart that they gave us, which is a student is either when they stay home and answer yes to any of those questions, or they exhibit any of these symptoms in school, we need to isolate them, send them home immediately, inform the student and parent that they must seek medical attention and must have provided a note and a negative COVID test before returning to school. If that changes by the time we get to school, I will let everybody, I'll make sure that I get that out, that word out there. So that's the health and safety screening for students when they come to school. The screen will be on the website when we get closer to school, and it'll be by grade level and homeroom teacher. Okay, so let's get into social distancing. There will be social distancing in classrooms. There will be social distancing in the hallways. We have directional arrows on the floor. There'll be one-way traffic against the wall going one way and then the opposite direction. And we've measured out, we have 6 feet of distance between the two passing, so it'll be single file in the hallways. Classrooms will be under, the magic number of 10 is what my number that I'm using as the square footage in the classroom to allow students to sit 6 feet apart and take their mask off and have a mask break. That's the guidelines, and what it says from state ed is I have to have the ability to have 6 feet in between people and then give them the ability to have frequent mask breaks throughout the day. Those mask breaks will be controlled by the teachers, meaning if a teacher has to get up, answer a question, move around the room, he or she may ask the students to put their mask back on to move around the building. There'll be markers for the cafeteria for students to stand 6 feet apart. There'll be a lot more methodical movement throughout the building, but again, by using this cohort model, A and B, there's going to be a lot less students in the building too. And the reasons there's a lot less students in the building is because we need to maintain that social distancing. I don't get to determine what I believe is the right thing to do. All I can say is this is what the guidance says, and we will have to follow the guidance to the best of our ability. So transportation is also health and safety, front vestibule. So in the morning when the students are coming in, and I'll talk about transportation in the morning, we'll be using both for the high school and the middle school. The buses will come in over by the middle school entrance, and the students will come through the doors over by the middle school, along with the door by the art room, the middle school art room. That's usually where the high school students come in. They'll be released from buses, 2 buses at a time, however many we need to do to maintain social distance. If kids are following directions, we can increase the number of buses that we can dismiss. Same thing with the walkers. Masks on, walking into the building, going. Anytime you're standing and moving, you'll have a mask on. When you sit down and you can social distance, you can take your mask off and take a mask break. So we use both the front of the building and also the zip gym to have students come into the building in the morning. Once the students are in, all doors are locked. There's a secure building, and the only way in and out of the high school is through the front secure vestibule. All summer long, they're working on the front entrance. You've probably noticed some work been around the front entrance, and they have a handicap entrance into the high school now, the front of the high school. And they also created a secure wall, so we have a secure vestibule, and that's where all visitors are going to be staying. We are not going to have any parents or anyone moving throughout the building unless you are part of that cohort. That's part of the guidance. I need to eliminate any movement of people that are not in that cohort. So all deliveries are going to be contactless, unless if not, they're going to have to take a COVID screen before they enter into the building and make that delivery. Okay, so that's the health and safety portion of this. Transportation. We are transporting kids to school, and like I said, we had a number of parents, say that they would transport. That number, when committing, went down a little bit, and we're going to see if we can boost that number up. And then with the hybrid cohort model, We've been able to reduce the number of students on the bus. Students will load the bus. um, Students will load the bus from back to front. Every other seat or as social distance as possible, as I said. Um, and therefore, when they get to school, the opposite will happen. From front to back, we'll unload the bus, and then when the buses are in, the students will be moved into the building in a smaller number than right now. Normally, we just unload buses, 5, 6, 7 at a time. That's not going to be able to happen. We've always allowed parents to drop off kids in the near the middle school bus loop. That's not going to be able to happen. All people dropping off their kids is going to have to be over at the zip lot, because we just can't have that many kids congregating in one area. There's a question.
How strictly will social distance rules be enforced?
Students are expected to stay 6 feet apart at all times. If they're sitting in the classroom, they can take their mask off and relax and not have to worry about having a mask on. Other than that, because we cannot guarantee 6 feet apart. You're going to have to wear your mask anytime you're standing and moving around. And I just ask that when you're crossing, when you're walking in the hallways, or as social distance as possible, one behind the other. This way we can have people pass. It just has to become the norm. It's the way we've been moving around in the building during the summer. Now it's a little bit easier because it's just a few adults here, but as students start to come back, that is going to be an expectation of students. It's the same thing as when you go into the store. You wear a mask and you stay social distance as possible. People are just getting used to that now. There's another question?
If a student is doing is doing distance learning, may they schedule band lessons with their teacher in person at the school? Online did not work so well in the spring.
I'm going to leave that up to the individual teacher. I'm not going to say yes or no. And I think Mr. Belgovich, if you are a student who is chosen distance learning, you're still a student in this building. And if the teacher schedules in-person lessons, I just asked if the parent get the child here. We do not have the ability to send buses out all over the place throughout the day. So I have no problem with that. When and if we have sports, it's going to be the same thing. There's still a student here. They can still join in sports and any after school and morning activity when we start to bring those back. So they're part of our school. They just have chosen that for right now because of the situation we're dealing with. They're doing a distance. They want distance learning. So I have no problem. That's I've said that for every activity. For the month of September, there's going to be, we're going to hear this week, we were told we're going to hear what the guidelines are for sports. I think by this mid-September, they're supposed to make a decision on sports, but I'm guessing at least for the month of September, there's not going to be sports, if not longer. I'm not planning on starting the school year with any extracurricular activities. We need to get into the swing of things for cleaning this building and sanitizing and see how long it takes. Without anybody in the building, we know how long it takes to clean and sanitize the building. But when the kids are all in here and we're back into the evening routines for cleaners and things like that's going to be when the month of September is all about, is making sure that we can get this building up and ready for the next day. Once I have an idea of that, then I'm going to start slowly adding in some of those other things to make the building more like school. It includes lockers. We're going to start the year off with no lockers. Students are going to carry all of their possessions with them. So, we're not using gym lockers, so there's no changing for gym. Just ask on the days that you have gym, you wear sneakers and material clothing that you can still take gym with. The gym locker rooms are too small. There's no way of social distancing and getting changed. That may change by the second, third week of school. The word that I've been using with everybody is be flexible, because things can change at the moment's notice. That's why we have Blackboard Connect, to be able to communicate with parents as quick as possible. But we're going to start out the year not using gym lockers. We're going to start out the year not using hallway lockers, because that just gives us one more thing that we have to sanitize. So the student opens up a locker, puts stuff in it, I have to open that locker up and sanitize it. It just gives me one item that I just got to tick off our plates until we see how the beginning of this year starts working out. Is there another question, or did I answer those? Okay, I think I'm caught up. So transportation for juniors and seniors to BOCES will occur. So BOCES, I'll let Mr. Gelgovich add some pieces in if I forget it, but BOCES is going to operate 5 days. That includes the distance learning kids. They're allowed to go to BOCES also. BOCES does not have a distance learning, or ON BOCES does not have a distance learning or a hybrid learning model. Theirs is five days in person. So therefore, we're planning on transporting 5 days. I will tell you that the only way we're going to be able to transport is from school in the morning, and then midday, and then at the end of the day. So if your child is on distance learning, they're going to have to make their way to school in order to get that ride, or you're either going to provide that ride yourself. We also have a number of spots. We're trying to get to that number. Mr. Gelgovich is going to send out an email for BOCES parents as we get closer to the end of this week in order to indicate whether or not you have transportation to and from BOCES. We're going to try and come up with some creative ways of handling that, but at the most, we do have some parking spots at BOCES. If your child does drive, and you give them permission to drive, they can drive to BOCES and leave their car right there and then drive back home. So there's going to have to be some flexibility there on both sides. But right now, I know I can provide transportation to and from school to BOCES. The problem is I can't. There's not enough time in the day, and nor not enough bus runs to go out and pick up BOCES kids throughout the vocational students out in the public, out in the community, and then take them to school, and then or take them to BOCES, and then get them back home. There's just not enough buses or time in the day to be able to get that done. There was a question?
Okay. Will the fitness center be open?
No. To further notice, the fitness center is closed. We've done a number of looks at it when it comes to the square footage and what we could open and what we can't open. We can't open it as a phys ed station right now. And if we open it up to the community, then it has to follow the guidelines that a gym would have to reopen. And we do not have the ability to follow those guidelines right now. So that is, and it brings in one more aspect of people from the outside into the school. So the fitness center for anyone in the community will stay closed. And as of right now, the fitness center is going to be closed for a phys ed station because, to follow the guidelines, we have to look at the square footage, how many people can be in there, and then also it has to be. I have to have somebody in there to make sure that they're sanitized in between stations and things like that. So we haven't got a mechanism for that. That doesn't mean by the time the phys ed teachers come in and we take a look at the different options, we may have something in place by mid-September. I just say to begin the school year, that fitness center is not going to be open for classes and not going to be open for the public. I don't see it open for the public for a good long time for the sheer fact of crossing over and having people from the outside coming into the building. I just think that's too much of a chance to take. And it also brings more people into contact tracing issues when it comes to if there's a positive case in the area. So far, we've been pretty good about having too many cases, but when that happens, anyone who's in the building falls under that contact tracing guidelines. Okay, continuity of learning plan. So the two models you can choose is either hybrid or distance learning, and teaching and learning will occur in one of multiple different ways. Some in person, in which students that are remoting in are going to be asked to remote in synchronously, so they're getting an invite to remote in synchronously, which means in the moment while the lesson is going on, the student's going to be asked to remote in, and some of it's going to be asynchronous, in which the student is going to be sent assignments through Google Classroom, and One of the things I've asked teachers to do is to create little video clips of the direction and also, more importantly, the content behind what they need to know to do that assignment. This way a student can look at it multiple times and be able to answer that question. Anything I'm missing on either BOCES or continuity of learning plan? Mr. Galgovich? Food service. We will be providing food service for the students. The cafeterias will be open for all students when they're in session. So the A cohort will have lunch at their regular lunch period times. We have the accurate count of how many kids can be in the lunchroom. So the students will go through the lunch line. All food will be provided to them. There will be no reaching in and taking food off the tray. Everything will be provided to them. The students will take their container, they'll go into the cafeteria, sit in predetermined spots, and then when we run out of cafeteria room in the main cafeteria, we have an auxiliary cafeteria that we're going to be using also. So there'll be two different locations. After a student gets their lunch, they'll fill the main cafeteria for the high school, and then we have another area that we're going to be using if there's overflow. We haven't got to that point yet. Students, when they sit down, they'll take their mask off. They can begin eating. When they finish lunch, they're going to stay seated. And the monitors in the cafeteria will give them a signal, put their mask back on, and then they're going to have to get up and throw their stuff out. There's not going to be this movement across the cafeteria. We just can't have that as it's going on. Okay, so students that are not in the cafeteria, that are distance learning students, will also have an opportunity to get lunch. There'll be a reservation section created. In fact, I've been working on it last week, a reservation section created on the district webpage in which you can log into at a predetermined time and sign up for lunch. They are going to align the middle school, high school, and elementary menus so they're similar, and you can, whatever that you're having in school, parent can choose your child to have that also. There'll be a location for pickup. Right now we're using the Zip foyer entrance. The fitness center there's a glass entrance. We're going to use that for pickup of lunches. And they're going to have like a half hour of time where they can be picked up depending on how many are being picked up that particular day. So you're going to get more information on that as we get closer to school. So a question pop up.
Did you mention that middle and high school students do not need masks while sitting at their seats? Just wondering about elementary students needing to be in their barriers to not wear a mask.
Yes, because the difference between elementary is I'm bringing everybody back that wants to come back. In the high school, they're using the hybrid model, which will break the classes up into half. Therefore, a class of 18 will have, class of 18 will have 14 kids in the class. Subtract the distance kids, however many of that. So right now we're averaging about 20% of our high school is chosen distance learning. So take 4 or 5 out of that. Now we're down to 9. 9 students can easily socially distance 6 feet apart in our classrooms. When they sit down, they can take their masks off. Again, 9 kids are going to be in school, 11 logged in at 9 or 11, depending, will be logging in from home. So the difference is at the elementary, we only gave them an option between distance learning and in-person learning. There is no hybrid at the elementary school because we're using the barriers, and we don't have to be 6 feet apart with barriers. The difference between high school and middle school also is, elementary and high school and middle school also is, elementary, they don't switch classes. So we can affix a barrier to a desk, and that barrier can stay down all day long. And then the student, when they're doing their work and inside the barrier, they can take their mask off and have a mask break, if that's the direction of the teacher. When they sit back or they stand up, they're going to have to put their mask back on, and their mask break is over. So the answer to that is yes. At the direction of the teacher, the students at the high school and the middle school, when they're all sitting in their seats, they can have a mask break. How long that mask break? It could be for the entire period, depending on what the teacher has scheduled. As soon as the child gets up, the teacher has to get up, move around. There needs to be a mask put back on. The teacher may determine that everybody needs to put the mask on because of the activity. It just depends on what is going on. So hopefully I answered that question, that there is a definite difference between what the elementary school is doing and what the middle school and high school is doing. And it was based upon community input, but also based upon the teachers and my belief that all of our students need to be in person in order to, school, if you go under the guidelines that school is most effective when all of our kids and all of our teachers are in school, that's the normal we're trying to get back to as much as possible. We're slowly taking steps. I can bring all of the elementary back, anyone who wants to. They'll be less than 6 feet apart, more like 3 feet, and then still be inside this barrier. They can take a mask break. But those barriers, we've been given guidance not to move them, so they can't be taking the barriers with them. So therefore, it's not going to work in the middle school and high school. Now, if we can, as school starts, and we can figure a way of having the kids stay and having the teachers move. We've been racking our brains at the middle school and high school how we would do that, and we just don't have a good path of doing that. Okay, I think I answered that question. Talked about food service, technology. So besides the Chromebook, and like I said, if you haven't got your Chromebook yet, call that number, 751-9399, and Mrs. Pavan will get you in contact with the tech department and get a Chromebook in your hand. If you filled out that survey earlier in the year and you know that you do not have internet at home, we have a possible way that may help. We have some hotspots that we're able to give to students to use. The only kicker is they have to be connected to a cell tower or near a cell tower. If your house is not near a cell tower, if you don't have cell service, very good cell service, these hotspots aren't going to work either. I was in the middle of Letchworth State Park, and while I could phone in and listen in on the class or on a meeting, I couldn't get accurate cell service, but I could still do my email and my asynchronous work. Would be very easy to do, but we're going to have to be flexible as time goes on to see what this looks like. But if you live near a cell tower, these hotspots will work. The only issues we're going to have is for students that actually have no internet and they do not have a cell tower near them. You don't have to have a cell service to use these hotspots, just a cell tower near them. I'm expecting there are going to be some. We are projecting into the parking lots our Wi-Fi. That will be up at the beginning of school. So if a student has an assignment and needs to be sent in electronically, they can come to the parking lot, just like McDonald's Wi-Fi is projected. There's many locations around the area that have the ability to have external Wi-Fi. It's not just the school. So that's the technology. We're in the process of looking at a number of different items that will allow our teachers and our students to interact electronically with documents under programs. One of the things I didn't mention at the beginning of the year, because of all the technology we're putting in place and all of the items that are being purchased, we need to do some training with our teachers. So I didn't say this at the beginning, but our opening day of school is changing a bit. So if you have the old calendar, you're going to have to take a look at the district website for the new district calendar, and then also the calendar that usually gets mailed out at the beginning of the year. It's going to be a little later than usual because some changes that had to be made. But that calendar change is as follows. In the old calendar, Superintendent's Conference Day was September 2nd, which it still is. but we've added 2 other superintendent's conference days for Tuesday, the 8th of September and Wednesday, the 9th of September, in order to get our teachers and our staff up to speed on technology. And also all the COVID-related trainings, the proper wearing of masks, respiratory hygiene, social distancing. There's like 8 or 9 of them that we have to make sure we give some information to our staff about. So that's going to be on the Tuesday, the 8th, and Wednesday, the 9th. The first day for the middle school, high school, for cohort 8 students is going to be Thursday, the 10th. And that's going to be a training day. And that's only going to be the students that are in cohort A. It's going to be how to use your technology, how the COVID training, how to get up and running on the things that you're working in school. Friday is going to be cohort B kids, the social distancing stuff in school, all those things related to in-person learning. So therefore, the first day for everything to occur is the 14th. So the distance learning kids on the 14th will log in, the hybrid students will log in, and the in-person students will come to school on the 14th. So that's really the true first day of school. The 10th and the 11th are training days for students. Cohort A kids come in on Thursday the 10th. Cohort B kids come in on Friday the 11th. All students at the elementary that are in person will come in on the 10th and the 11th. And they're going to be doing some of the similar things. Let's see, class lists at the high school, those usually don't come out until school starts. I would expect some less things on the class list because there's going to be a higher emphasis on paperless type of items. Most of our high school students will have a touchscreen type of a device. There are a number, 70 students in the high school and middle school, that their device is not touchless yet. We are working on that, waiting for an order to come in, and once the new ones come in, we will swap them out for the ones that students have that are not touch screens. And what I mean by touch screen is it allows them to use their finger to write on a document or a stylus. You may see as part of your child's beginning of the year supply list a stylus and headphones. Many of the kids already have headphones. They usually work out pretty well with our Chromebooks. You may have to go out and get a stylus. There's some inexpensive models out there. I heard they're at the dollar store too. I saw them at Dollar General. So there's a ton of different places you can get, decent but inexpensive headphones and stylus, and be able to. That's going to be the majority of what our students are going to be using. There will be some paper documents, but for the majority, we're asking teachers to try to keep that down as much as possible. Other things, I talked about BOCES, orientation. I'll let Mr. Galgovich, you want to talk a little bit about 9th grade orientation?
Yeah, so 9th grade orientation for all incoming freshmen is going to be done virtual. We're going to be putting together a video, video presentation on the year. It'll be coming out here sometime late this week or next week. Send us some communication for that as so they put it on as far as the finalized. And then for new students to the district or the high school, we'll be setting up for a pre-tour the building. Right now, I'm looking at targeting September 1st, Tuesday for that. I'll send out some information during that as well. That tour will just be for new students to the district, students that are freshmen or attended this in the past, that the middle school students are not being scheduled for the first tour because they've been able to tour and then new to the district, and that's the kind of thing that we don't have
Thank you, Mr. Galgovich. According to my list, I got through the 15 items that I have on my list. If there's any more questions, we'll take them. As you're typing your remaining questions, I'm going to let you know is there might be a need for an update as we get closer. If not, I can do it through email. I can do it through email or communicate with the Blackboard Connect system. One of the things I said with parents, with shortening the beginning of the year up or taking days for training days, I've said this in the other sessions, there's going to need to be some flexibility. I can certainly see where at some point in the year, we have a need for go totally remote. I mean, there is no magic number. It's just, if I have the ability to cover classes, if I have the ability to have a percentage of our students in, we're going to run with this hybrid model. But if I end up with either the Department of Health telling me that we have a number of kids we have to quarantine, or if I don't have the ability to get staff in, there might be a time when we may have to go to remote for a portion of the time. You've seen other districts that have already said they're starting out remote. We don't have plans to. We have plans to do in-person at the elementary for any parent that wants to send their child to school, and then distance also at the elementary. And then at the high school, middle school, we're doing the hybrid with a distance learning plan. If you want to be 5 days distance learning, you have a choice between those two. So I'm expecting at some point, depending on the level of absenteeism, weather, snow, it's very easy to say instead of tomorrow's closed, tomorrow's a remote day due to the weather. So log in to your schedule. So that's something we're going to all have to be flexible on. There's a question about how will gym operate. We're in the process of looking at that right now. Right now, it'll be outside. Certain activities like music, band, and gym, in order for them to happen, you have to have 12 feet of separation between people. So therefore, right now, it'll be smaller classes outside. If it's an inclement day, there'll be no movement or very little movement. And I'm guessing that that's going to continue to be some of the conversations that Mr. Galgovich is going to be having with the gym teachers as we get closer to school, what that is really going to look like. Okay. Right now, I can tell you on good weather days, you can be outside. On bad weather days, you can't be outside. And you're going to have to make sure you bring wear what you're going to wear for gym. Sneakers, it'll be a lot, things like that. Any other questions? Okay, we're about 48 minutes into this conversation. I haven't seen a question pop up in a moment. I'll give it a second or two and then click off the live feed. Again, if you have any questions that I didn't answer, comments that you want me to put up, I will do my best to do that. There's another question. Will school day be shorter or longer? Unaffected. We're still having the same start time, same end time. I'm guessing the beginning of the school year it usually takes a little bit for the buses to get in here anyways. So there's going to be that natural slowness at the beginning of the year. But as soon as the people are in the routine, it takes us about a week to get the buses up and running. But the school hours still going to run. 12th period will still be there. In-person kids can actually go to the teacher for the 12th period for assistance, or they can request an invite to remote in with their teacher or call into the classroom, email back and forth during that 12th period to get assistance. That'll still be there. So that in-person people, the day will be affected as little as possible. That's a good question, Matthew.
Another question is, will the cafeteria food be affected, or will it be the same food as last year?
I think they're planning on the same. When I asked that question, Matthew, I did. We talked a little bit. It's not going to be. The menu will be similar. They're going to align the elementary, middle school, and high school, so they don't have to make multiple different things. You're going to have to see how it runs. I don't expect it to be much different, but I also don't go down to the cafeteria unless it's the sport line at the end of the day getting chicken fingers. So I'm not. I can't tell you exactly what the difference in the cafeteria. When I posed that question to Isabel, our cafeteria manager, she indicated that it would be very similar experience for students. other than the fact that they won't be able to reach in and pull stuff out. They're going to have to, everything's going to have to be handed to them. Because we can't have multiple people touching things. So mechanism of getting the food will be different, but I don't think the food itself will be a change. Did I miss any other questions? We're all caught up? Okay. I'll give it a minute or so, and if nobody else puts a question up there, I will click off the live stream. Again, if you think of a question after this, or if you as we get closer, you want some more information, you can call that 751-9399. There won't be, Matthew, good question. There will not be service of food after school, because as soon as that 12th period is over and that late bus leaves, there's no after school activities. So therefore, school closed right after that 12th period and these buses leave, because we need to get the building cleaned and sanitized for the next day. And like I said, as we get closer to the end of September, we'll reevaluate that and see if we can start, see how that also works as we get closer to the end of October, or end of September, if I can start adding some things back in. But as of right now, as soon as that last, I think it's 308, Mr. Galovich, 308, and the late buses start loading, they usually leave somewhere around 3:15. That's the end of the school day. No students will be in the building. So no, there will not be any after-school cafeteria, sports line, traditional after-school lunch line. That will be suspended until we can bring back after-school activities. Thought of one other thing. I believe, let me see if I can remember it. I was getting ready to answer that last question. There was a part I wanted to answer and I can't remember what it was. So again, if you have any other questions, put them up now. If not, I'm going to sign off, and I'll take your questions through that 751-9399 number. All righty. Have a great rest of your day. And there's the phone number. Please give that a call, and that connected right to Mrs. Pavan, and she'll be glad to answer any further questions. Have a great rest of the afternoon. Thank you.